Hey everybody, it's Professor Parish, and I am going to go over tonight with you all our grammar sampler. Most of you did really well on it, and I was very happy with how the overall class did on the assignment, but I wanted to kind of explain the answers just so you all have that for future reference, because you will likely do grammar assignments like this in future classes. So, I wanted to just go over this, so I have it pulled up here. And I emailed you back your grammar sampler with the correct answers highlighted, and so I'm just going to go over those real quick just so you have kind of an idea of why I picked the answers that I did. Alright, so in our apostrophes and quotation section, we start out with this right here. It's a difficult test. It's is probably one of the weirdest pronouns because it's the only pronoun that does not have an apostrophe when it's possessive. So when it owns something, there's no apostrophe in it. So whenever you see something like this, it's always a contraction. It's always it is that's been simplified into its. This version of its means that it owns something. And it's the only word that shows possession with no apostrophe. So it's kind of odd. I'd say that this word gives people the most trouble when they're doing grammar. So if I said it's a difficult test, anytime you see an A there, that's probably a sign that it is not possessive, because in order for this to be possessive, the next word needs to usually be a noun. So if I said its test is difficult, I would use this form here. But since it says it's a difficult test, if I, widen out this contraction, it would say it is a difficult test, which makes sense. So that's the one that we're going to pick. But the students did well. Now in this case, there's nothing here. There's no noun that shows ownership. So there's nothing for the students to possess. So we're just going to go with the regular students for that one. My math teacher's tests are too tricky. So with this one, you had two options. You could have either said, my one math teacher's tests are too tricky, meaning this is a noun here, so we can use the apostrophe possession form. Or I could say, my math teacher's tests are too tricky. So either of those answers I would have accepted as correct. Now in this case, the teachers at this school are open-minded. There's nothing for the teachers to possess, so we do not need an apostrophe. We'll just go with the regular teacher form. And then we have this sentence here, and it kind of has a lot of different answers. So I know they're trying hard. We want to go with there because it's a conjunction. I know they are trying hard. Why aren't? Why are not? It's kind of an odd phrasing, but we're going to go with the one that has the apostrophe in the correct location. Why aren't they passing there? Now, there is possessive, and it is also an irregular verb, like it's, so it changes the word form, and there's no apostrophe. And then whose fault is it? People kind of get confused on which whose to use. It's very much like it's. If you choose this form, you have to say who is. So we can't say whose fault is it. Doesn't make sense. So we're going to go with the possessive whose. Alright. The children's toys are broken. A lot of students miss this question. Children is an irregular verb, meaning it's not like a normal plural verb. So you can't say like, walks or drops, where you just add an S. Instead, children, it's not childs, it's children. We changed the term. But it's still one collective of children. So because of that, because it's one group, when we add the apostrophe, do children, apostrophe S. The children's toys are broken. Okay? And finally, this is possessive. Its roof, so we're going to do its here. Its roof caved in. There is no excuse for that. So there is. Theirs. Alright? Hopefully that makes sense for this first part. A lot of it is just looking at the word that comes next and seeing if it's going to be possessive or not. So like in this case, if there was a noun here, then yeah, maybe you would have gone with the possessive version. But since there isn't, you have to break this contraction down and say it is a difficult test. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. So we're going to go with that version. All right. This is similar, choosing the right subject-verb agreement. Joe and Jim have been friends for a long time. They are neighbors and play in a band. I think everyone got this one right. Neither Jan nor I were able. Neither Jan nor I. Because typically you would think it was, because Jan was not able to attend, or I was not able. But since you're talking about both of you, neither Jan nor you, which is kind of like saying the both of you can't, that's why you say were. We were. Sorry, we had to miss it. And same thing. It's a plural noun here, so we're going to go with the plural verb. Now this one's a little bit tricky because each of the barrels, if I said each barrel, it would be each barrel is full. But since I say each of the barrels, we're going to go with are. Each of the barrels are full. Each one needs to be inspected. They are from Italy. This next one threw off a lot of people too. There have been two. We do have because it's plural here. There have been 2 tornadoes near here this year. They frighten me. The stories in this book, now when it comes to this, you look at the contraction and I simplify it. So it's the stories in this book does not interest me, or the stories in this book do not interest me, and it's do not. They don't interest me. But my wife and son enjoy them. This is another kind of tricky one. The nurse or the secretary come in on Saturday. The nurse or the secretary comes in on Saturday. Much work needs to be done. One of those sentences does not, so doesn't, make sense to me. But my classmates were not, since it's plural, were not confused by it. None of the tests have been graded, but all the homework has been checked. That little singular, all of the homework has been checked. The doctor and her husband take a trip to Mexico. So, comma usage is part 3. Now, in these, commas are kind of tricky, and I will be honest, I am a comma-happy person. I love adding commas. So, I have to kind of rein it in sometimes because I want to get a little overboard. But, number 16, I'm fairly sure that you will find a good job in the field of engineering. Anytime you end a piece of dialogue, you put a comma right there. Said Randall, and since we put his title as extra, put a comma. Anytime you add any extra filler information like this, you put a comma before it, and then you finish out the sentence with it. Although Gary has been working in his yard, comma, he still needs to plant more trees, comma, shrubs, comma, and flowers before it will look as nice as his neighbor's yards. So, you've got 2 complete sentences you're putting together. In this phrase, or not 2 complete sentences, you have a phrase and then a complete sentence. So this whole thing is a prepositional phrase. It cannot stand on its own. Although Gary has been working in his yard, it can't stand on its own. So you need to put it at the front of the sentence with a comma directly after it, and then you're completing the sentence. He still needs more plant, trees, shrubs, and flowers. And you put your commas to mark where your listing is. The new roof will be put on next week and the house will be painted soon, but this is the example of 2 complete sentences being connected with a contraction or conjunction, but not contraction. That was above. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Right here. So, the new roof will be put on next week and the house will be painted soon. That could be its own sentence. The driveway won't be repaired until next month. That could also be its own sentence. But since you're connecting them with this conjunction but, you need to put a comma right there. Okay? My friend Ann won a scholarship to Kent State and will major in business. this one, you could put as correct, and I would not have counted off on it, because technically it doesn't need a comma. But if you had to put one in, you would put it right here with "and." Because you could say, my friend won a scholarship to Kent State. You don't need the word "and," but since you've added it, you can put it between commas. Or just label it correct. And then finally, Beth, comma, my 2-year-old, because my 2-year-old is something extra. We don't need it in the sentence. Beth is very curious, so I have to keep a close eye on her. Beth, my 2-year-old, is very curious, so I have to keep a close eye on her. I would also accept if you put a comma after curious. If you didn't, I did not count off on it, but if you did, that was fine as well. Alright. So, a lot of these are just proofreading, sounding out the contractions, kind of wording them out, seeing what they represent, and then just kind of practicing and going through this. We will have more practice probably on sections like this, but in the meantime, I hope that this video has helped at least explain the answers to the grammar sampler, and hopefully everything goes smoothly with week 2. Email me if you have questions. Let me know if something doesn't make sense. I've made videos in week 2 about the assignments and how to do them. There also is a video in week 1 about that, so please check them out. Please read the example guidelines for the article review, and let me know if you have questions. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys soon.